What's up, dudes? Welcome back to Analyse the Pros. This week we have HunterAce versus Silvername in the Grandmasters finals that took place this weekend. I believe this game took place on Friday. It's going to be HunterAce with the token Evolve Shaman against Silvername with, the aggro priest that we're used to seeing. For the token Shaman side, this is a list that is very similar to the one that I made last season, but with a few new additions with the wildcards introduced. Desert Hare plus Evolve is the main one, which is an incredibly powerful tempo combo on turn 4 or even beyond turn 4, which gives you 3-4 drops at the very minimum and evolves the rest of your board, which is going to be a huge amount of tempo, which is going to be great against Priest, specifically because tempo is key in beating Priest. Keep him off the board, you win the game. Other than that, this deck was already quite good against Priest. You have things like Lickham, which absolutely destroys Priest, given they have a bunch of 3 health minions that you want to get rid of. On Silvername's side, we have Aggro Priest. This deck list is similar to the ones we've seen in the past, although this particular list is running 2 silences and 0 topsy-turvies. So when it comes to converting high health minions into damage, it's less likely because there's only the inner fires available. For mulligans, on the token Shaman side, against this Priest deck, the best card you can get is Lickham. Obviously not in hand right now, but let's talk about if you want to keep any of these. Lightning Bolt is actually pretty good removal, especially going second. If the opponent drops a Tolvir or a Cleric early on, the Lightning Bolt one-shot kills it, which is great. And those are the kind of cards that snowball out of control, so you really want to just kill them when you get the chance. Voltaic Burst isn't actually too bad of a card, but I would never keep it unless I have a combo already available with it in the form of either Lickham or Mogu Flesh Shaper. Evolve, I think this card is so powerful that you might want to be keeping it on its own in a vacuum regardless, even if you don't have the Desert Hare already. If you do manage to pick up the Desert Hare, it's just so powerful that I think I would keep Evolve in pretty much any matchup on its own. This matchup specifically isn't as good of a keep, I'd say, than others because you're more focused on removing what the Priest is trying to do rather than developing your own side as much. So I can get behind throwing it away in favour of cards like Lickham or Mogu Flesh Shaper, which are probably quite a bit stronger than Evolve usually. On Silvername's side, he actually has a pretty strong hand already. In my experience playing against Priest, the games I lose are when they just keep dropping big things and you can't remove all of them. And this kind of curve lends itself towards that. You just go Tolvir on 2, Blade Master on 3. These probably will die a lot of the time. If they don't, great. If they do die, then you just get a really, really powerful turn 4 and you'll pick up tools along the way to help you snowball from there. Let's start with like clerics and heals and getting card draw and that. That actual start isn't as strong in this matchup as it is in other matchups. This matchup is more about pure tempo. Can I stick big things onto the board? Because the Shaman is very good at keeping you off the board. So even if you go for a big card draw start with a Cleric, if the Shaman gets ahead on board, they're just going to be able to keep you off no matter what you develop. And you're going to be very limited by your tempo and your mana rather than by your cards. Just a little note here, when Silvername Snap plays this Light Warden off the top, it kind of indicates to HunterAce that there isn't another 1-drop in hand, because you'd at least think about playing something else. And maybe Light Warden is the correct play, but you would never just Snap play it before it even enters your hand, pretty much. And with 3 kept cards, like a Cleric is a very likely kept card in a lot of cases, so when this Snap Light Warden off the top comes down, it might give HunterAce a little bit of information that the cards in hand aren't a Cleric, which you don't really want to be giving away free information like that. On HunterAce's side, he has a bit of decision here, whether he wants to kill this Light Warden. Now, the most damage efficient way to kill it is with the Zap, but there's probably something you don't want to be doing because Zap combos super well with Thunderhead later on, like as a turn 4 play or as a turn 5 play, is super powerful. So you definitely don't want to be using the Zap here. The only other way to remove it is with the Bolt. So upsides for using the Bolt, well, the Light Warden dies. If Silvername were to have Beaming Sidekicks or Powered Shields in hand, he wouldn't be able to buff up this Light Warden's health. I would say it's not unmanageable to deal with a 1/4 Light Warden when you have a Bolt and a Zap and a Thunderhead in hand. Very likely going to be able to deal with it in the future. And in terms of Light Warden's attack, it's not very threatening early on. Both heroes are at full health. Using something like a hero power early on from Silvername, you're going to be completely fine with, because it's a very mana inefficient play. A Light Warden on like turn 5 is threatening in terms of its attack, but on turn 1 it's very likely not going to be growing into a threat until the mid game, where you're going to be able to have the answers to deal with it. In terms of hand reads, Silvername does have 3 cards still kept in hand. We do have a slight inkling that they're not going to be a Cleric in hand, given how Silvername snap played his 1-drop off the top of his deck last turn. But we might not want to be going 100% with this read. But it sort of leans us in towards the direction that there's no Cleric. Other upsides for using the Bolt now is for our curve. If we use Lightning Bolt on turn 1, we're going to be overloaded on turn 2, but we're not going to be overloaded on our turn 3, which leads us to be able to use Coin, Thunderhead, and the Zap as early as turn 3. The problem with Lightning Bolting on turn 2 is that this play is not going to be available to us anymore. Leaving ourselves open on a turn 3 isn't just good for a Thunderhead and a Zap. This Evolve is in hand, so if we were to draw a Desert Hare as well, we would be able to go Coin, Desert Hare, Evolve on turn 3, and then follow that up with a Thunderhead, which is almost always going to result in a win because of the sheer amount of tempo available there. So leaving us with that potential top deck for a turn 3 is also an upside for using a Bolt now. Downsides for using the Bolt is that it's not very efficient removal. Light Warden, again, isn't a huge threat. Something that is a huge threat is an injured Tolvir, I would say. If a Tolvir comes down on turn 2, this isn't really a minion that you do want to be killing, because if the Priest can snowball a Tolvir's health and you can't deal with it, then every other minion that they play behind it is going to be protected from trades. And that is very powerful because it's going to allow the Priest to choose value trades where they want to. It's allowed them to snowball off board with things like Clerics, which are now going to be protected behind this taunt. So killing the Tolvir itself is very, very important, I would say, from the Shaman side, just to allow you to get towards Priest's other minions. With 3 kept cards from the Priest, it isn't unlikely that we're going to see something like Tolvir plus Circle coming down on turn 2, and in that case the Lightning Bolt is ineffective against the Tolvir, and this Light Warden is going to be buffed to a 3/2, and you're going to start taking a lot more face damage in that scenario. I wouldn't say this is actually super bad for you. I've been in this situation plenty of times before, and something you can do is just, even a totem on turn 2 is fine, and then you can go Coin, Thunderhead, Zap, and just zap the Light Warden itself, and then just leave your Sparks on board as 1/1s against a 2/6. And then next turn you'll have a Lightning Bolt in hand to help you deal with this injured Tolvir in hand, plus the minions you have on board, and you're actually going to be fine in that scenario. Starts becoming a little bit dicey if Silvername is able to buff the health of the Light Warden on turn 3. But this kind of scenario, it's not going to happen a lot of the time. Most times you're going to be facing down a 2/3 Tolvir on turn 2, but it does sometimes come down as a 2/6. In the other scenario where a 2/3 Tolvir comes down, we really want to be using the Lightning Bolt on it, I think. What this does, it does actually delay our Thunderhead Zap by a whole turn. We can no longer Coin Thunderhead Zap on turn 3. We have to wait beyond that for another turn, which isn't always the worst thing to do, because we might end up picking up an extra Overload card, and then we can do turn 4 Thunderhead, Zap, Coin our other Overload card and get extra value out of a Thunderhead that way. And your opponent's not going to be able to interact with the Thunderhead. So a problem with going Coin, Thunderhead, Zap, and you don't actually clear up the entirety of the board is that your opponent can sometimes kill your Thunderhead, or they can use a silence on it, and then you're not getting that additional value out of these Overload cards. Another upside for delaying the Thunderhead is for cards like Sea Giant / Mogu. Sea Giant's a little bit far-fetched, it's pretty hard to get down this early on, but a Mogu Flesh Shaper is definitely a consideration for saving Thunderhead. The problem is if you've used your Thunderhead, you've removed some of Priest's minions, you've used your Sparks already, and your Overload cards, and your Mogu Flesh Shaper is going to be like 5 mana or something, it's not going to be able to come down. Whereas if you've saved your Thunderhead and you draw a Mogu, it's very likely you're going to be able to manipulate your mana to be able to play Thunderhead, Overload, and a Mogu for like 0 or 1 mana. So definite upside for actually being patient with your Thunderhead, in that you may get use of 2 Overload cards on 1 turn, and you may get a very cheap Mogu Flesh Shaper out of it. So my philosophy against turn 1 plays against Priest is that I will Lightning Bolt Clerics, but I won't Lightning Bolt Light Wardens. Partly the reason is, if this goes up to 4 health, it still dies to Thunderhead Zap, whereas a Cleric on 5 health won't die to that. And other reasons is, Cleric's just a Cleric. The Cleric has to die. Light Warden, it doesn't have to die. You can leave a Light Warden on board for a few turns and still be A-okay. Although HunterAce, which the play does, which is Lightning Bolt, it does make sense for mana reasons, I don't think it's the right play. I think you're supposed to use Lightning Bolt on more threatening things, like Injured Tolvir, and just leave this Light Warden around. It's not much of a problem right now. So Bolt does come down, and the next couple turns kind of just play out themselves. So if HunterAce's turn, sticking to the plan makes a lot of sense here. Coin Thunderhead Zap with potential to follow up with a Lightning Bolt is great. I don't think you want to just Hero Power Lightning Bolt here. It does lend you towards being very weak to just a Psychopomp follow-up. The great thing about going Coin Thunderhead Zap on this Tolvir to kill it, you have a 3/6 and a 1/1. If Thunderhead doesn't die, and even if Silvername were to win the 50-50 of a Psychopomp and end up with a 3/1 and a 2/6 Tolvir, you're actually going to be able to deal with the 2/6 and the 3/1 and just leave up the Blade Master by use of just this Lightning Bolt, and you're going to be absolutely fine in that scenario. So you're looking in pretty good shape here from HunterAce, I would say. Alternative play is to pass here in hopes of using Thunderhead, Bolt, and Zap all on the same turn. Upside of this is that your Thunderhead isn't weak to being killed. If you use Thunderhead Zap here to kill off this Tolvir, this thing's still free to attack. So if there's something like an extra arms available for Silvername, or health buff plus an Inner Fire, you might be in trouble. Or even just a silence can be quite bad for your Thunderhead, because your next turn's really just looking like a Lightning Bolt. So there's certainly a bit of upside in delaying by a whole turn here. The downside to that really is you start becoming very weak to things like Nephesite Ritualist and Circle of Healing. A Circle of Healing would have come down this turn if it was available, but there's potential for it to be top decked. I think you're still fine against a Psychopomp, because a Psychopomp's just going to bring back a Light Warden, which isn't a worry for you. Another downside to waiting is that it's very mana inefficient. You're going to be overloading twice anyway on your next turn, and it's going to make your turn 5 a 3 mana turn, which is not very efficient anyway. And you're also being mana efficient this turn, essentially passing your turn with just a totem, which isn't great. So I think I do like the use of Coin Thunderhead Zap here. It's great against specifically a Psychopomp, because you're going to get board control just via the follow-up of the Lightning Bolt. The downside is you do open up your Thunderhead to being traded into, but it's not going to happen that often from your opponent. A little bit of a tangent, but something I do like to do in this matchup, if I can get away with it. When your opponent doesn't have the required amount of attack on board, I like doing something like Coin Thunderhead and no Zap, or Coin Vicina, and then follow that up with a Thunderhead and Zap, and it just completely gets control of the board if they can't kill your 4-drop, which is going to be the case a lot of the time. Not very viable here because there's the 6 power already on board, but it's something to watch out for if you're playing this deck. So for Silvername, he has a pretty good Psychic Pump a lot of the time, but this Beaming Psychic in a fire line to kill the Thunderhead is just super powerful, and it deals with the threat from HunterAce's side. And then you've got the Amit or the Psychic Pump as your follow-up to this, and you're going to be in great shape, I would say. For HunterAce's side, just killing the Blade Master makes a bunch of sense here, so they can't snowball this high attack minion into not being able to die to things. Another great pickup by Silvername. He really has had a very strong hand this game, I have to say. This Amit play is really good with the Psychic Pump as follow-up. And HunterAce hits one of the only outs I'd say he has to actually remain in this game from this point, which is the Desert Hare Evolve here. Very, very powerful. Bit of a low roll there, hitting a 0-4. You really want to just get stats at this point. A 3-3, again, not super great. 3-3 is probably doable. A 0-4 is really bad to see for HunterAce. And for Silvername, his hand kind of just plays out itself. It's a big old Blade Master he hits, which is fine. Could do something like trade and heal here, but I think just a big Tolver is probably a better play, and just kill off this Hyena. I think I'll just take the value trade with the Amit here rather than killing off our small things. It does lend a little bit more into like Sea Giant if you don't trade off your 1-2 and your 1-7 here, and obviously the Amit itself gets a bit injured, so maybe it's a bit easier to clear. But I think you'd rather have more attack power on your side of the board than trade off your guys here, because there's more than enough minions on board here to make a Sea Giant good. I'd rather have more attacks available on our side of the board to help with trades. I think a 2-7 Amit is more than enough to be good on the next turn. For HunterAce's side, he has some options here. Number one is Bloodlust, which is okay. Buff up this to 6 to trade here. You buff this to 7 and this one to 2. And that's going to allow you to kill off the Amit and this Tolver and just leave the opponent with some stuff. So I think that seems like a fine play to me. Also damages your chest, and that potentially allows you to trade it off for the card draw in the future with maybe this Vicina. When it comes to using this Mutate, I would say it's probably not top priority to do it this turn. You could obviously mutate the chest, which is the best stat increase, but this 3-1 here isn't really doing a whole lot this turn. It's very likely to just die to this with very little gain on your side. I will say, however, mutating it to a 5 right now actually doesn't do that much for you either, because it's very likely that this Injured Blade Master is going to be able to deal with a 5-drop very easily and have little downside to Silvername, at least in the immediacy. The upside to holding this Mutate is when you have the Spirit of the Frog in hand, the Mutate is going to allow you to draw Voltaic Burst a lot of the time, or you're going to be able to save Mutate for something like a Mogu Flesh Shaper if you were to draw that in the upcoming turns. When we have Vicina in hand, drawing Voltaic Burst is potentially super powerful. If we go Spirit of the Frog next turn, yeah, we leave Silvername with this board for a couple of turns, but I think our health total is fine against that. Silvername is just top decking, so yeah, it's going to hit not a very good card a lot of the time, so we might be able to take a turn off, or we could just develop the Spirit of the Frog onto the board. Silvername probably not interested in killing off your treasure chest. Likely what's going to happen is these two minions are going to die, and this is still going to be on board to be able to get buffed by a Vicina in the future. So what's going to happen likely on the next couple of turns? I think our health total is fine. With an Inner Fire already used and Silvername in top deck mode with no Cleric on the board, we're very likely going to be healthy enough on this life total. It's going to be hard for the Silvername to convert this minion health into damage. So we can take a couple of turns off, probably just taking face damage at this point. I say Silvername is unlikely to kill this treasure chest. He's probably not interested in giving us an extra 2 cards. So we're likely on our turn 8 going to have, at the very least, the 0-3 frog plus this treasure chest. And with a mutate in hand, we could potentially use it on the frog to get a random 4-drop. And that's going to probably draw us a Voltaic Burst. The only spells left in deck for 1 mana are the second Evolve and 2 Voltaic Bursts. And Voltaic Burst and Vicina work really well together. You go Vicina, Voltaic Burst, buff the attack of this treasure chest, trade the chest into something and draw an extra 2 cards. Hopefully pick up something like, I don't know, a Lickim or a Mogu Flesh Shaper, or maybe even a Sea Giant might be quite good at that point for additional amounts of tempo on that turn. And we're going to be probably able to clear off some of the opponent's board and develop a board of our own. And it'll probably get us back into this game, I would say. So the downside, I think, of using this mutate really is that we lose out on our activator for the Spirit of the Frog to find this Voltaic Burst, which is very important at this stage with the Vicina in hand and this treasure chest on board. And the other side is that I don't think a random 5-drop actually impacts this board that much. I think this Injured Blade Master a lot of the time is going to be able to one-shot a lot of random 5-drops available. And if not, with the help of this Beaming Psychic, it's going to be able to do that as well. I think even this trade is actually quite beneficial for us to have it happen if this Beaming Psychic gets injured, because it's going to be a minion that we might be able to kill with our Vicina turn. And then maybe we'll just isolate Silvername with a single big minion on board. And then we're going to be leveraging a wide board state to essentially limit what Silvername can really do with his turns, because he's not going to have a lot of attacks available. So we almost kind of want this Beaming Psychic trade to actually happen, because it's going to allow us to clear off more of Silvername's board in the future. So a lot of waffling on that turn from me, but I think here, I do like the Bloodlust this turn to clear off like the Ammit and the Tolvir. But I think going forward, we want to be saving this mutate and probably taking the next turn off to just develop the Spirit of the Frog and then go for a potentially super powerful turn 8. Having said that, that's a pretty good 5-drop to get in this spot. It doesn't actually matter too much now. This Nephroset Ritualist draw, all this damage that's happened to the board is kind of nullified from this. Even the hero power this turn would have been good, I'd say. Silvername heals up the treasure chest. So in terms of like a Bloodlust or whatever, HunterAce has to send it into the Blade Master, which is kind of a bit of a cheeky play, but I think it is probably correct. HunterAce does find a second 0 mana card, so he's going to be able to chain off the Spirit of Frog again. But I think in this spot, you probably want to do what I was suggesting last turn anyway, which is to wait a turn so you get a more powerful Vicina, and instead go for just hero power for Spirit of the Frog here. Save the zap for your next turn, because your Spirit of the Frog's never going to die. It's impossible for it to die. You just go Spirit of the Frog, hero power here, and then you go in for a turn 8 Vicina, where you're going to have more mana available. The problem with Vicina now is that it just dies. Like, you can take this trade and get 2 cards immediately. But if you can't kill off this Blade Master or this Psychopomp, Silvername's just going to kill your Vicina on the next turn. No problem at all. And it's very unlikely you can kill either of these 9 health creatures on this turn. So I think it's probably better to just go Spirit of the Frog hero power here and go for a stronger turn 8 with a Vicina, because doing this play, you do draw a card from your Frog, but you don't have any mana left available. Having the Vicina die here is really bad. You really do need those attack buffs. So Silvername, Silence drawn, doesn't need to use it here. I think you just need to kill off this Vicina. I think it's probably better to use the 3-9 here rather than your 2-3. Silvername goes for the more damage efficient, but he leaves his Nefset Ritualist available to being killed. We know that HunterAce is very likely to have drawn a Voltaic Burst, so leaving yourself with a 1 health minion isn't ideal. Instead, I'd rather just utilize this Psychopump's health to trade away there and give HunterAce a harder time at removing some of the power of your board. So HunterAce not a bad turn here, just going for Sludge Serper and the Voltaic Burst seems pretty good. Set up for a Bloodlust on the next turn. He does go for Soul of the Murloc, which makes sense. You're almost at a full board, and you have a Sludge Slurper in hand for refill on the next turn. I mean, you can trade some of these guys off now if you want to do additional damage to the board to maybe make your Bloodlust better on the following turn. There's certainly a play that you could do. Probably not necessary though. I think the Bloodlust is going to be more than enough a lot of the time. Well, on Sunday, obviously a nutty draw for Silvername. He has had a pretty good hand this game, I'd say. I wouldn't want to commit these clerics onto the board just yet though. They are very important for the next turn, so you're looking like just a heal this turn, I would say. I think silence the Thunderhead and then limit the number of minions from HunterAce by taking a trade into the Murloc is good here, or simply just pushing face damage can work here as well. Killing the Spirit Frog is okay. I wouldn't say I think it's probably done its job at this point, but hey hum. It is a somewhat free trade. So yeah, HunterAce just plays out his hand here. With 2 clerics about to come down, what do we want to achieve from our side of the board? Well, we want to be able to value trade into the clerics ideally, so keeping this thing alive would be nice for us because it's one of the few things that can value trade other than the Sea Giant. So we don't want that to really die. We don't want to really send a bunch of 1/1s into clerics if we can get away with it. Additionally, we don't really want to leave our opponent with a damaged minion. Say this is like a 3/8. Then the opponent just go cleric, heal their guy, and this thing's going to be able to choose, where it wants to attack afterwards. And if they were to draw something like Divine Spirit Inner Fire, well, they could maybe send that into face. They could send it into our Sea Giant and Nefset Ritualist there, guy back up to full health and get really good board control that way. But if we force them to have to trade before they do the draws, we're going to end up in a much better situation a lot of the time. Downside of having one of our guys injured, say this Thunderhead's injured, is that Circular Healing is going to be able to draw Silvername extra cards. Unlikely that, given all the trades available and 1 minion from Silvername's side, if he has to take a trade first, that he's going to choose a trade where he bumps into the Thunderhead in hopes that he draws a Circular Healing. But if he takes like a value trade and we already have a damaged minion and he draws a Circular Healing, you can bet that Silvername's going to use that Circular Healing to draw extra cards from his deck. And just having an injured minion on our side of the board is just going to help him in that scenario. So ideally, we want to end up after this Bloodlust, if we can't clear everything, which we can't in this case, is end up in a situation where our opponent has no damaged minions and we have no damaged minions. Downside to leaving, say, opponent with a very high health minion is that he's not played any Divine Spirits at this point. So if you leave Silvername with a big health minion that's not damaged, you potentially give them a higher tempo tool in the future with a Divine Spirit, which might be very hard for you to clear. And if they pick up their Inner Fire in the future, then that thing might be able to kill you. There's also like the threat of a Wild Pyromancer coming down and dealing with all our 1 health guys. I think that's going to be very strong regardless of how we trade this turn, so it's probably something we don't want to play around too much. But I think for Bloodlust trades, we want to be killing the Spawn Sandy for sure, and 2 4-attack guys kill it very easily. And there's this Blade Master and this Psychopomp left available. And we'll have a 4, 6, and a 4 available, plus this Kobold Lackey. So something we could do is double trade here, and Kobold Lackey this. Seems fine. And then this is just a 4-1. That seems like the best thing to do to me. Makes use of all the trades. You do end up with an injured guy on your side, and the opponent has an injured guy on their side. You could also take the line where you just kill this guy, and you kill this guy, and then you use the Kobold Lackey on the second half. So you have this guy dead, and you just leave this as a 3-9, and you don't injure this guy. That leads more towards anti-circular healing things, but you leave your opponent with a 3-9, which means Divine Spirit becomes very good if that were a card to be drawn, just to play around circular healing. I think the best thing really to do is to kill everything but the second half of this Blade Master and just have a 4-1 Blade Master on board. That seems like the best route to me. The line that HunterAce takes I don't think is ideal. You don't need to Kobold Lackey first, so you can just Sea Giant, and then this thing's going to die for your board space for the Kobold Lackey afterwards anyway. I think the trades that HunterAce take here aren't ideal. We end up like being a bit damage inefficient with our trades. We leave up the Reborn Blade Master, which is harder to clear in the future. We overkill this Psychopomp by a 3 here. Like we could have ended up with this exact same board state, but the opponent would just have a 4-1 here. This actually ends up being a big punish for HunterAce that he took those bad Bloodlust trades, I'd say, because this Divine Spirit really hurts him. If it was just a 4-1 Blade Master, then Silvername could heal it to a 4-3 and then extra arms it to a 4-5, and then this thing would only have 10 health when a Divine Spirit's going onto it, rather than 20, which is a huge deal in this scenario, I'd say. HunterAce's turn and Evolve is drawn, and with a full board, Evolve is usually pretty good. I'd say top priority this turn is killing off these clerics. Cannot let Silvername draw anymore. With 17 health and a 20 health creature on the opponent's side, Inner Fire is potentially pretty scary in terms of you dying. We know there's more arms in hand as well. So we can either go for, I want to clear Silvername's board and let him not do anything for the rest of the game strategy, or we can go for I want to counter pressure them and try and lethal them strategy. I think it makes sense to kill this Light Warden as well, because its attack buff going up to 5 is going to allow Silvername to deal with one of your threats next turn, and just using a 2-1 to kill it makes a whole lot of sense. So it's probably going to be at least these two trades going to happen, and then probably these trades happening, and then this happening. I mean, you don't actually have to kill the second cleric if you don't want to. If you're going for the counter push, I would say it's probably best to only kill 2 of these guys and then go face with the rest and evolve and let Hero Power evolve, and then just leave your opponent with 2 minions. One of them is a cleric, so it's a bit risky, and I don't think this line of play always works out, especially with the very, very clean trade on your giant to prevent any lethals coming that way. But it's certainly a line that could work. I think the safer line is probably to just try and clear the opponent's board going forward. And doing that, you take this trade, and because you don't really want to die to Inner Fire, I guess, and you don't want this more arms to do a lot of work on this Injured Blade Master, you take this trade, and then you go 1, 2, 3 on here. So you have these minions die. And then you go Hero Power Evolve. I don't think you need to Hero Power afterwards. I think this being on a 6-12 is fine for you. There's potential you can die if you don't hit a taunt if they have specific cards in hand, but with 17 life, an Inner Fire alone is not going to be able to do it. I don't think it's worth going for a 1 in 4 taunt totem over just the better stats of having a random 2-drop. Yeah, a bit of a low roll. But yeah, I think in terms of stats, we've just not got enough really here to deal with the 6-12. Obviously, this is a terrible 5-drop to get, but I think it's better to just Hero Power first. The more I think about it, like the more I kind of like ignoring either the Injured Blade Master or ignoring one of the clerics just to go for an extra 2 minions with our evolve here and go for more stats. Looking back, we could maybe even take this trade and go for this trade and then go for a 7 minion evolve again, and I think that's fine. Like, because in terms of stats, we're really not there on the board we end up with. Like, obviously we low rolled off 5-drop, but even a 4 attack 5-drop might lend us into a bit of trouble when we're facing probably down a 16 health Injured Blade Master anyway. We're still not going to have the required attack power a lot of the time. So here for Silvername, that's the kind of thing what he wants to do. Acolyte of Pain, draw extra cards is great. Putting this to 8 and sending it to the face doesn't actually set up lethal because your opponent's on 17 and you're only pushing 8 twice. So it does instead go for a more board-centric strategy here. It recognises there's not much attack power from HunterAce. And with the Blade Master on board and this Acolyte, he's going to actually just wrestle board control for the rest of the game a lot of the time. Oh, can Ethereal Lacquers pull us out? Does go for Earthshock. You can use it on the Acolyte as well, actually, to prevent any more card draws. That seems actually like the best play in the spot, and just take the value trade with the Wasp. See, HunterAce was a little bit annoyed that he rolled the healing tome because he wanted the attack power on his Wasp. And very good top deck from Silvername and a pretty good roll. And from here, I think it's probably best to start pushing some face damage. Extra arms on your 4-5, I believe, and then maybe heal up your 6-4. Seems reasonable here. Yeah, HunterAce can't actually clear enough here to live. And that's GG. So yeah, nice to see the Shaman getting a little bit of love in pro play. Got a very apathetic looking Silvername there after that victory. But a few things I think HunterAce could have done a little bit better. It was a very strong draw from the Priest, and HunterAce definitely got a bit unlucky with some of his evolves as well. But if you're a bit sharper on a couple of turns, I think it could have been still a win for the Shaman. Particularly the Bloodlust turn actually resulted in a bit of a snowball from Divine Spirit on the following turns, which kind of snowballed into the loss. I think if that Bloodlust was able to deal enough of the board, and after the Sea Giant comes down, I think the Shaman still actually takes the game. But yeah, interesting game to analyze. Obviously, the Priest turns were fairly straightforward, but from the Shaman, a lot of things to think about. And I hope I gave you some good insights into how I feel when I play the deck. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will not be doing one next week. I'll be in Bucharest trying to win the Masters Tour over there. I'm planning to do a little bit of a trip report video for that, so give you a little bit of behind the scenes footage of what it's like to play in one of these Hearthstone tournaments. So stay tuned for that, and maybe if we're lucky, I'll make it onto stream, and maybe we can do an analysis video of one of my own games. Until then, I'll see you later.